Nitrous oxide is the greatest. It makes power so easily, but do you want the plate system or the direct port system? We're gonna answer that question and show you stuff you probably didn't think about this time on Engine Masters. Man, I love nitrous oxide. It's so simple. All you do is take this liquid out of a bottle and you inject it into the engine. It turns into a gas. You add some fuel to it. It like chills the inlet system hardcore. When it gets into the cylinder, all of that compression and heat makes the nitrous break up into oxygen molecules that let you burn more gasoline, that let you make more horsepower. And you know what? I've done it all of my life with what they call a plate system that goes underneath the carburetor and just simply shoots the nitrous and fuel down in there. I've only ever done like maybe a 250 to 300 shot personally, which is why I've gotten away with plate systems. However, there are people who run up to 400 or 500 horsepower with a plate. That's hardcore. What's really hardcore is direct port nitrous oxide. What this does is sprays the nitrous and additional fuel right there in the port. Think of it like the difference between throttle body fuel injection, where the gasoline sprays up here, the same way a plate sprays a nitrous and fuel up here, versus direct port EFI, where the injector is down by the cylinder. That's the difference that we're looking at here, and Steve Brule has told me that even at the 300 horsepower level, there's big benefits to running direct port. And that's what we're gonna be investigating in this episode. What I'm gonna do first is tell you about the engine we're gonna be using for testing, and then I'll get into details about the nitrous system that we're gonna be using. You may recognize this engine because it's been on several episodes of Engine Masters. It's the one that I first put together to make 1,000 horsepower naturally aspirated, but there's some stuff that's different about it from before, so let's talk about that. It's a 582 cubic inch big block Chevy. It uses a Dart aluminum tall deck block. It used to be 14.7 to 1 compression. I have dropped that to 12.5 to 1 so that I can put it around on pump gas, and honestly, that's gonna make me feel safer with the nitrous too. I think nitrous is a little riskier with higher compression, even though it makes more power. It's got the same camshaft it used to. It's a big solid roller. 284 and 300 duration at 50, 850 lift, 114 lobe separation angle. The big change now is that it has Brodix BRX heads on it. These are an as-cast head. They are not ported, but they're extremely similar to the Brodix SR20, which is the hot cylinder head these days. It's a 20-degree deal, massive intake port, 444 cc's. They flow 495 CFM advertised, and so that's a trick unit. We're gonna see how those work. The intake manifold now is also a Brodix, heavily ported by James Bostic at Bostic Racing Engines. And the other thing that he did is a spectacular job bending up all of the lines and installing our direct port nitrous system. He spot faced the pads on the intake manifold. Like, Brodix gives you a little cast-in pad to put a nitrous nozzle, and he machined them down nice and flat, tapped them in, put this in, and did just a killer job bending all these lines. The look of direct port nitrous just says serious action to me. I love it. Now, up top, the carburetor is going to be a QFT 4500 series, and it is 1250 CFM. So that's our engine. It makes 986 horsepower at like 71 or 7200 RPM. And of course, we're going to bump that up way over 1,000 with nitrous oxide. Let's look at how we're going to do that. All of our nitrous kits here are coming from Nitrous ProFlow. That's a division of Wilson intake manifolds. We love the quality of their stuff, and I'll say I've never used a nitrous plate like this. The nitrous plates have spray bars in them that carry the nitrous oxide and the enrichment fuel, and usually they're a tube that's pressed into an aluminum plate, and these are billet and cut in one piece with the plate. It's actually really trick, and they use what they call fan spray technology. Usually there's just holes in a plate and they squirt out nitrous this way and fuel this way. These apparently squirt it all out like this so that it's more of a fog across the intake manifold to try and improve cylinder-to-cylinder distribution. And we're only gonna be spraying about 300 horsepower worth of nitrous oxide. So the question is, if you can do that super easily with the plate, why would you ever go to the direct port system? Well, the direct port is usually really hardcore for guys who are trying to put in like 600 or 700 horsepower, or even if they're using a plate and a direct port system together. But Brule told me once again that there's real advantages to this. The big advantage to me is that it looks so cool. I think the originator of this, or at least the popular thing, is an NOS brand fogger. The fogger's a direct port kit. A lot of people refer to these generically as a fogger, but this is a Wilson, so that's not the brand name, but it still has that look. They use what they call a V-force nozzle. This nozzle goes into the intake runner, and it's got one hole in it for gas and another one for nitrous, and it sprays it right there at the back of the valve. And the thing is, when you do that, you end up having jets in each individual cylinder. The plate system has a fuel jet here and a nitrous jet here. The jets have different orifice sizes, and that's what determines how much nitrous you put in the engine, how much fuel you put in, and the nitrous and fuel mix determines how much horsepower you're gonna make and how rich or lean the system is. So while you've only got 2 jets in the plate, you've got 16 in the direct port setup. With those 16 jets, 2 per cylinder, you get a lot more discretionary tuning over each individual hole in the engine. But does that even matter at 300 horsepower? That's what we're here to find out. So we're gonna run this thing with no nitrous at all so you see what kind of grunt that it makes. Then we're gonna go to the plate system and get that refined. And finally, we'll go to the direct port system, try and make it match the same horsepower level that we did with the plate, and start tuning individual cylinders. This is gonna rip. We're gonna make way north of 1,000 horsepower. We're testing various nitrous systems on my 582 cubic inch big block Chevy, but first we needed to know the power off nitrous. And it's actually pretty stout. This thing makes 987 horsepower at 7,100 RPM and 780 pound-feet of torque at 6,200.
For 12.5 to 1, it's good.
Next step is going to be nitrous plate system and seeing how that works out. Yeah. What's our tune-up going to be on that? What are you going to do with timing? What are you going to do with jet? How much power are we going to make?
You've asked me way too many questions all at once.
Okay.
I can tell you that my intent is probably, once again, to be a bit conservative. I'm going to pull out ballpark numbers, 4 degrees per 100 horsepower increase, plus a couple extra. I'm going to be conservative. We're going to start with Wilson's recommendation for a 275 shot. I've got to go look at what those jet numbers are, but in the past, we've seen that the Wilson stuff kind of typically makes a little more power than what it's advertised to be. Mm-hmm. So if we're really shooting for 300, I'm going to actually target a 275 number because I think it will go over.
And naturally aspirated, we're running 37 degrees of timing.
Yeah, so we're going to knock it back,
pull
basically 12 or 13 degrees out.
Yeah, put 22 degrees in it.
Yeah.
And we've got it on the MSD so that when you hit the button is when it pulls the timing, right? We better verify that.
Yeah, it's actually, we always do. We go through that step, and the first thing we look at is check the solenoids, then we verify the timing with no fuel or nitrous hooked up. Then we hook the fuel up, purge that solenoid, then finally the nitrous. The other thing that we're actually able to do, this is a digital 7, you can do it with the grid as well, is when I activate the nitrous solenoid, it instantly pulls the timing out. But when I release the button from testing, it actually keeps the timing out for an extra half a second.
That doesn't bother me.
To make sure that all the residual nitrous in the cylinders is now gone out, to make sure that there's no potential for detonation at all.
That's pretty trick.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go take those precautions, tuning this thing up, and then we're gonna run the plate nitrous system and start to look at some of the cylinder-to-cylinder distribution on that thing. And of course, the power. We've gone through all our safety checks. We did some initial runs, tuning it up with a 225 horsepower gain. Now we have it jetted for 275, and we think it's going to be good. It might even make almost 300 horsepower with this kit. Let's find out. We've just gone as far as we're going to go with the plate, and we've got it jetted for what Wilson says is a 275 shot in their kit, and it actually made 290 horsepower. Here are the numbers: 1,277 horsepower at 6,600 RPM and 1,035 pound-feet of torque at 6,400. Those are going to wiggle really depending on where you press the button, but for what we're doing here, we're going to have a comparative analysis. There it is. You can guess where Steve hit the button.
In my brain, I'm thinking 5,700, but, you know.
I will also say that the hit is softer than what we've seen sometimes with plate kits like this.
With Wilson's recommendations, we actually have about 3 more degrees out than I have seen some other systems recommend.
Like you retarded the ignition timing 3 extra degrees.
Yeah, so it actually has 15 degrees out with a 275 shot. And I think that helps that really abrupt hit, you know, where it's just a touch softer, which I think is a whole lot safer for the engine, to be perfectly honest.
Bam, straight up.
Yeah, because, you know, that's where it's going to detonate, is with all the timing in it, and when you first activate it, that's where the most pressure is. So I like having the Wilson type tune-up with a couple, 3 extra degrees retarded.
You're also hitting the button way later than many drag racers would. He's hitting the button basically 6,000 RPMs where it begins to spike. If you were on a 5,000 converter, you'd be way down here.
I'm not trying to see what happens for 3,000 RPM.
No, we want to see
numbers. So.
I mean, really, what we're looking for, I think, is the distribution and which one's safer.
Yeah.
And it's not even going to be which one makes more power, because who knows where the jets are exactly going to fall.
Yeah.
On that note, let's look at the cylinder distribution. Now we're looking at the air-fuel ratio in each individual cylinder. And if you just want to go, let's say, to peak power, which on this is 6,600 RPM, we can look at a range of the leanest cylinder is 13.8 to 1 air-fuel ratio, and the richest one is 11.6 to 1. In general, when we run a spray bar nitrous plate, we typically see that the distribution's not the same in every hole.
For me, it'll limit how much nitrous I want to put through a plate, because as you're getting more and more power, and if you have that variation, it could get more and more dangerous with more nitrous.
Yeah, if you jetted this for 400, for example, does that distribution get better or worse?
Well,
it might get better because there's more nitrous being sucked out of the roulette wheel.
I've seen in some of the limited classes where they have to use a plate, where guys really get after it. But my personal opinion is kind of 250. 300 is the end of the road for a plate. After that, I think direct port nitrous is just a better bet.
Well, that's what we're going to find out, because I think a lot of hardcore nitrous guys are sitting at home right now going, 400 through a plate's no problem, Steve. And it might not be, but what we're about to find out is whether it's a little bit safer to have that port injection. And my honest hope is that we still have a distribution problem and that we can fix it with individual cylinder jetting.
And we can.
All right, so let's check that out. We're just going to do a quick changeover from the plate to the individual port nitrous. We just had a 290 horsepower power gain with our plate nitrous oxide system that Nitrous ProFlow says was only supposed to make 275 with the nitrous plate. That's pretty normal that it has a little bit more gain than they advertise. The jets in it are 92 on the nitrous side and 82 on the fuel side. Now, when we go to the port nitrous injection, the jets are going to be way smaller because there's 8 of them. So what Steve's doing now is just checking all of the jets just to make sure, because we haven't messed with this in a while. We don't want to accidentally have like one cylinder with a 400 shot or whatever. What are the jet numbers that we've got?
28 nitrous, 22 fuel.
And in your experience, that's a 250 shot that makes 300?
I'm thinking it's, you know, kind of recommended to be a 250, 275 by different manufacturers, but
yeah,
a lot of times it's a 300. I mean, it gets awful close to it.
Steve's gonna finish up making sure all of the nitrous and fuel jets are exactly what they need to be so that we don't overspray this thing, and then we'll run it, and hopefully it makes right about that 300 horsepower gain, and we'll see how much better it is or isn't in cylinder distribution. You missed it by a little bit. You said it might make 300 with the jets that they advertise as 250. Yeah. It actually made 273 horsepower with the jets advertised as 250. Here's the final power numbers at this level. We made 1,260 horsepower, which is pretty cool, and 1,013 pound-feet of torque. Let me show you how close this actually is to the plate, even though it looks down a little bit. Dulcich doesn't like it. He always wants more. But let's overlay the plate on here. We have the plate system in red and the port system in black. You can see the gains that we saw are really right here at the hit. It spiked a little bit more. That's very close.
As it revs up, there's almost no difference at the very, very top.
Yeah, I mean, the peak went from 1277 to 1260.
This isn't a surprise.
No, it's no surprise at all. It's actually pretty good. So now we're gonna get into looking at the tuning, and maybe as we nitpick the tuning, we can pick that up and gain it back a little bit.
We hope.
Let's look at the cylinder distribution. If you remember when we were looking at the plate system, we had a couple holes that were leaner than we wanted and one that was fairly rich. It appears to be more even with the port setup, but I'm still looking at a cylinder here that gets as lean as 14.6 to 14.5 at peak torque.
Yeah.
And then our richest cylinder is 12.8, 12.9, 12.5.
You know, those numbers may appear lean by kind of some recommended air-fuel ratio numbers, but in our past experience, at these power levels, you can run these things almost at the same air-fuel ratio as you would normally aspirated.
Yeah.
In fact, there's some issues that actually occur that I know that you've seen, where when they're too rich, it can damage parts as easy as too lean. So I'm actually pretty impressed with that tune-up.
In my opinion, nitrous wants to burn gasoline, and I think it could make more power if we richen up some of those holes.
I agree 100%.
I'm on board. So we've got number 1, number 2.
You're looking at which holes we want to richen up a little bit? I would do 1, 2, 3, 6. 1, 2, 3, and 6.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, and 6, just to tickle more fuel in there, and who knows, that might pick up our power because we'll have more gas to burn.
We just did a tune-up to add 2 jet sizes to 4 different cylinders to add more fuel to them to even out the air-fuel ratios. We're gonna find out if that only made the tune-up safer or if it also made more power or neither. We just made our biggest power yet and our best tune-up yet. Here's what we did after we went in and richened up just 4 cylinders. You can clearly see on this graph that's actually like a bunch of spaghetti. The red lines here are before our tune-up and the black lines are after the tune-up. We wanted to richen 4 cylinders. You can see those 4 cylinders are here, they're leaner, and we moved them right down. They're richer.
Imagine that. Did what we wanted it to do.
It doesn't always happen.
No.
Yeah, it never happens when I ask Dulcich.
What? It's as easy as pie. You just throw those jets in there and boom.
Done.
You get that.
Well, I'm glad it worked exactly as expected. The thing is, evening out those air-fuel ratios in each cylinder did not make more horsepower. It just kind of doesn't matter, which is weird to me. Sometimes we see it like on tunnel rams, sometimes we don't.
We're in that window where, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 tenths may not matter.
But it makes it safer, in my opinion.
Absolutely, and that's kind of is always my target, is to make sure that the motor's safe.
Yeah.
Then you can start becoming aggressive with it.
Now, because we've got the tune-up so good, Steve went in there and tickled 2 more degrees of ignition timing advance into the thing, which typically makes power, and it did. Let's look at those curves. The red lines here are when we had 22 degrees of total ignition timing, and then the black lines are when we edged it up to 24 total. Now, those will sound very retarded to you from a naturally aspirated number, and it's still very safe, but look at the power it made just from the extra ignition timing.
How much 10 or 12 horsepower makes at this point? I don't know. That's a ton of power any way you look at it.
Yeah, it's also just change the jet and you can solve that problem. The final power numbers are 1,268.4 horsepower and 1,022.8 pound-feet of torque. I guess what I learned in this episode is that even if you want to run really low power levels of nitrous, because let's be honest, 300 is just getting started for a lot of guys who are running a direct port system.
Absolutely.
We've shown that that tuning with the direct port is absolutely worth it and gives you a base from which to grow and have your tune-up be safe.
Every time I see something get hurt with nitrous, it's because somebody comes walking in going, let's throw the 42s at it. I've had it that way in the boat. Let's hit it. And something goes wrong. I think this is the place to start. Now we've got knowledge, and now there's a place to move from to get to that 500 or 600 horsepower.
Your big message in the episode is start low before you go high.
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing I think I learned here is that really 300 horsepower, I'm still kind of okay with a plate system. I'd prefer the direct port, but the price gap is fairly significant. So is the complexity.
It is, and at 300 up, I mean, you can't really, the guy that buys a direct port isn't the guy who's going to be running 200 anyway. He doesn't need it. So he's got a price advantage there. But now on the way up, and the other thing about direct port, going back, is that you can't run 200 really very effectively. It actually becomes dangerous because the gasoline jet becomes so small that it can become plugged easily. So then you can damage something. So in my mind, 275, 300 is kind of the bottom end of the direct port stuff.
Yeah,
agree.
You can go up from there. It's just a jet change away, really.
And we survived the episode with my 582 in one piece.
Your 582, my favorite motor.
Yeah, that's great.
I like it too.
Cool. Yep. Whew. We'll try not to blow stuff up because we hate to do that every time we sit down to do Engine Masters.
Running wild in the